Before we dive in, drop a comment. What would you do if your family treated you like this? Speak your truth below. We read every single one. Let's begin. She's probably here for scraps, my cousin Mason smirked, wiping buffalo sauce off his chin with the back of his hand, a half-empty hard seltzer dangling from his other. The paper plate in my grip suddenly felt like it was made of bricks. Everyone laughed. My uncles, my cousins, even Aunt Rhonda, who always claimed to be above the drama. The laughter wasn't loud, it wasn't even cruel, but it was precise. That special kind of sting only family can deliver. I stood on the edge of my aunt's backyard in Mesa, Arizona, heat curling around my neck in the early September sun. The ribs on my plate, unwanted. I wasn't hungry. Not for barbecue, not for hollow hugs, and definitely not for the slow burn of their condescension. Uncle Troy chimed in, wearing that same smug grin he used when talking politics. Still bussin' tables at that airport diner, Jules? He chuckled before I could respond. Saw your ride out front? Still driving that beat-up Nissan? You know we've got guest parking, right? Not the gravel lot. More laughter. Beer cans clicked together. No one stood up for me. Not even my mother. She just kept poking at the potato salad like she couldn't hear a word. I looked over at my brother's wife, Elise, done up like she was walking a canned red carpet instead of standing by a fold-out table. She didn't laugh. But she didn't say a word either. Her eyes darted away from mine. Maybe we should have grilled extra for our essential worker, Mason said, raising his beer in a mock toast. That one hit. I was 38, single, no house, no title. Just 6 days a week at Sky Brew Cafe in Terminal C and a room behind a body shop on Apache Drive. But I didn't come here for food. Or for them. I came to keep a promise. And just as I turned to put the plate down and leave quietly, the hum of a high-end engine broke through the Arizona air. All heads turned as a sleek black limousine rolled up to the edge of the lawn. Then came the silence. At the curb, just beyond the desert-worn fence, a sleek black limousine eased to a stop, like it had taken a wrong turn from Scottsdale Fashion Week. Sunlight bounced off its polished frame, casting long reflections across the lawn. The doors stayed shut for a beat too long. Elise, Mason muttered, did someone die? Troy squinted, still clutching his drink. Is that a limo? The driver stepped out, pressed black suit, mirrored sunglasses, unbothered by the heat. He rounded the car and opened the rear door. And then he emerged. Tall, charcoal gray suit, crisp as if it had never seen a wrinkle, movements clean and confident like the desert bowed to him. Every beer stopped mid-air, every snicker vanished. Then he turned toward me, only me, and smiled. His voice rolled across the backyard like distant thunder. You forgot to invite the host. No one moved. Mason's smirk disappeared. Mom's serving spoon clattered into the potato salad. Troy sputtered into his drink. I stepped forward, letting my paper plate drop to the lawn. Hi, Ethan, I said, voice clear and calm. You made it. And just like that, the laughter died. For good. The quiet wasn't awkward. It was seismic. The cicadas kept buzzing, the gravel crunched beneath Ethan's custom shoes as he approached the lawn like it belonged to him, because it did. Troy recovered first, clearing his throat. Host? What are you talking about? Ethan paused in front of the folding table. With a slow, practiced motion, he removed his sunglasses. His gaze drifted across the crowd, sharp, knowing, dangerous. Isn't this the annual Bennett family barbecue? He asked, because as far as I know this entire property, the backyard, the mortgage, the grill, even half your parked trucks, was paid for by me. Mom's hands gripped the table edge. I moved beside him, shoulders squared. Everyone, this is Ethan Carrington, my business partner. And then, smiling for the first time all afternoon, I added, and co-owner of Carrington Bennett Holdings. Mason looked like someone had punched him in the chest. Elise blinked hard, visibly calculating. Uncle Troy's jaw twitched, never one to be outshocked. But this time, he had nothing. Now that's a good one, Mason scoffed, raising his beer. You, part of a real estate empire? Come on, Jules. He sniffed theatrically. You still smell like French fries. Ethan didn't even blink. He turned toward Uncle Troy with the poised politeness of a coiled predator. Actually, Mr. Bennett, we just closed a $48 million, 0 cents commercial development in Flagstaff, he said smoothly. Jules handled the fieldwork, zoning, permits, contractor audits. She's sharp, one of the most capable people I've ever worked with. The words dropped like a pin in a cathedral. But he wasn't done. And since this backyard, and the deed it sits on, falls under Carrington Bennett Holdings, Ethan added, pulling a sleek envelope from his blazer pocket, you may want to review the updated occupancy terms. He placed it gently on the table. Mason grabbed it before Troy could. His hands shook as he read, lips moving. Finally, Mom found her voice. Why would you help her? She's a waitress. I turned to her, calm and even. Because while you all laughed, I worked double shifts and put myself through night classes. Then, 3 years ago, Ethan walked into Skybrew for a coffee. He left a folder behind. Ethan nodded, lips twitching into a smile. She chased me across the parking lot to return it. Hired her as my assistant a week later. Smartest decision I ever made. Elise stood, flustered. So, you're rich now? I met her gaze. No. I'm respected. That's better. The same mouths that once mocked me were now silent. A few stared into their drinks. Others, shifted like chairs, had grown thorns. But I hadn't come for revenge. I came to reclaim my dignity. The question Elise asked, so you're rich now? Hung in the thick heat like charred meat smoke. But I didn't answer it again. I didn't need to. The panic in their eyes said enough. Brian's fingers trembled around the contract. His jaw worked like he wanted to speak, but no words came. The man who once winked at my poverty looked lost. He turned to Mom for backup, but she just stood there, still, quiet, calculating every past insult that now felt like a boomerang. And Uncle Troy? He finally exploded. Hold up just a damn second. You're telling me this whole thing? If you're still reading, you've only seen the beginning of Jules' quiet revenge. So don't forget to subscribe for the next chapter. Trust me, you won't want to miss what happens when Uncle Troy learns who really owns the deed to his house. Uncle Troy gestured broadly toward Ethan, the limo, the envelope. Is this some kind of scam? A stunt? You messing with us? Ethan turned his head slightly, one brow arched. You think I drive around Mesa in a Rolls-Royce, wear a $6,000 0 cents Breitling, and stand here in 98-degree heat for a prank? Troy faltered. I didn't say. You didn't have to. I cut in, my voice calm but edged. The voice I used at zoning board meetings when developers tried to bulldoze me with ego. You all decided who I was years ago. The waitress. The failure. The one who couldn't finish school, couldn't land a husband, couldn't get her life together. I turned to Brian, locking eyes. You used to call me the family stain, remember? He flinched like I'd smacked him. Jules, come on, he said, forcing a chuckle. It was just a joke. No. The word rang out, sharp and final. The whispers died instantly. You were never joking. None of you were. Not when you made me sit at the kids' table at 27. Not when I brought potluck dishes and you mocked my store-brand containers. Not when I came late from work and you smirked like that proved something. I looked down at Elise, her hands tight around her wine glass. You asked last year if I was still folding napkins. Even Mom looked away. Ethan stepped closer, his presence steady. Jules doesn't just have a career, he said. She's led 3 major housing revitalization projects across Arizona. She works like the future depends on it. Because for a lot of families, it does. Brian straightened, attempting pride. You didn't have to embarrass us, Jules. That hit me. Embarrass you? I echoed, stepping forward. You know what's embarrassing? Walking into a yard full of your own blood and being treated like background noise. I swallowed. Being asked if you're dating, as if a relationship is the only sign you're worth something. Being mocked for grinding 6 days a week because your job doesn't come with a badge or a bonus. My voice cracked. But the worst part? I paused, letting it hang. The worst part is, I kept coming back. hoping this year, maybe, just maybe, you'd finally see me. You all just kept doubling down, I said, voice steady. Troy shoved his hands in his pockets, bristling. Well, if this is turning into a pity parade, I think I'll— You're not going anywhere, Ethan cut in, voice smooth as glass. Because you're standing on my property, and there are a few things I'd like to clarify. The backyard went still. You see, he continued, casually adjusting his cufflinks, this house? The deed now belongs to Jules and me, which means legally, she owns the land you're standing on. The gasp that followed rolled through the yard like a monsoon breeze. And as of this week, Ethan added, glancing at me with a faint, satisfied smile, your mortgage paid in full. Not by you, not by the bank, by us. He looked at me again. I nodded, smile thin but sharp. Which means you're welcome to finish your barbecue, but starting tomorrow, we'll be reviewing your occupancy terms. Brian's beer slipped from his hand, landing with a soft thud in the grass. Mom's chest rose like she'd forgotten how to exhale. Elise blinked rapidly, clearly trying not to cry. And me, for the first time in years, I wasn't apologizing just for being here. I was standing in it. My worth, my power, my truth. The backyard, once echoing with laughter and clinking bottles, now held only silence, except for the low purr of the limo engine in the driveway. Camilla, Elise, stepped forward, voice sugar-coated and trembling. Jules, honey, I had no idea you were doing so well. You should have said something sooner. I mean, we're family. I tilted my head, giving her a slow, deliberate smile. Funny, because last Thanksgiving, you called me a walking cautionary tale and said I lowered the family aesthetic in thrift store jeans. Her cheeks turned crimson. That was just banter. No, I said softly. That was cruelty dressed up as comedy. Then I turned to Mom. She still hadn't said a word, hadn't defended me once. Do you know how many times I wanted to tell you? I asked. When I got promoted, when I closed my first six-figure deal, I wanted to call. She looked up, eyes glassy, her lips parted. You should have told us, anyway. And just like that, I knew we were no longer the same. You didn't want to know, I said quietly. You wanted me small, manageable, familiar, but I outgrew that version of myself. And now you don't recognize who I am. Ethan placed a hand gently on my shoulder. The weight of it steadied me. I turned back to the backyard, to the faces frozen in discomfort and disbelief. You made me feel like background noise, I continued, like a placeholder between your real conversations. I worked 60-hour weeks, paid for every night class out of tips, spent evenings choosing between dinner and gas. My voice caught for a breath, but I didn't stop. While you were posting vacation photos, clinking glasses for doing the bare minimum, I was just trying to survive. And I never asked for your help. Never blamed you. I just worked. But all you saw was my uniform, my cheap car, my late arrivals. I looked them in the eye, and now that I've stepped out of your shadow, now that I don't need you, you're scared. Brian snapped. We're not scared of you, Jules. Don't flatter yourself. Ethan's hand dropped. He stepped forward, calm as ever. That's funny, he said. I've been in rooms with billionaires, senators, CEOs, and not one of them stutters reading a property contract. Brian opened his mouth, then shut it. Mom sank into a lawn chair. Elise looked like she wanted to scream, but couldn't find the courage. Then came the question I expected. Aunt Liz, who had been silent until now, cleared her throat. Why do you come today, Jules? What did you want from us? I met her gaze. I wanted you to see me. Just once. I didn't need applause, not even kindness. I just wanted to know. Would anyone ask what I built while you looked away? Silence. And now? Liz asked. Now, I said, voice calm. I don't need you to. I turned to Ethan. Let's go. We have a meeting at 4. He offered me his arm. As we walked toward the limo, Brian blurted, Wait, so you're just leaving? After all this? I didn't look back. I didn't come for revenge. I came with a message. Camilla's voice cracked. What message? I smiled. I was never the disappointment, you just never had the vision to see me. The limo door shut, the engine purred, and I let the sound of gravel beneath the wheels say the rest. The backyard shrank behind us, along with the people I once bent myself into shapes to please. They just stood there, like ghosts at a funeral. But this time, it wasn't me they were mourning. It was the version of me they could belittle, dismiss, over. Ethan sat beside me, silent, letting me breathe. After a while, I broke the silence. Think I was too harsh? He looked over at me. No. You were honest. They're just not used to that, from you. I nodded, folding my hands in my lap. The limo was quiet, but not uncomfortable. It was the silence of closure, of weight being lifted after years of swallowing words I should have said. I didn't plan to humiliate them, I said softly. I know, Ethan replied. You didn't humiliate them, you freed yourself. I let out a breath I hadn't realized I'd been holding for 10 years. That afternoon, we had our meeting. Polished boardroom, polished voices. I presented a new development plan for an eco-friendly housing project in a neighborhood that looked a lot like the one I grew up in. Only this time, they listened. They saw the numbers, they saw the blueprint, they saw me. That night, I went home. My real home. A quiet, sunlit loft, walls lined with books I used to only admire through glass. 12 missed calls. Brian. Mom. Elise. Numbers I hadn't saved in years. And one voicemail. From Mom. Her voice was quieter than I remembered. Jules? I know we weren't fair. I should have said something sooner. I just didn't know how to face the fact that you changed. And I missed it. I'm sorry. I didn't cry. Not this time. I saved the voicemail. Not for forgiveness, but because it mattered. Later that week, I visited Skybrew Cafe, not as a waitress, but as a guest. Jody hugged me like I'd never left. You look like a CEO now, Jules, she laughed, but I remember the girl who gave free coffee to the old man who cried on Tuesdays. Still would, I smiled. That weekend, I got a letter from my cousin Natalie, the only one who hadn't laughed that day. She apologized. Said she admired me. We had lunch. We talked. And I realized, not everyone was the enemy. Some were just too scared to stand. But I wasn't scared anymore. I was never the joke. I was the storm they didn't see coming. And I was just getting started. If you've ever been underestimated, I want to hear from you. Drop a comment. Tell me what you would have said in my place, or what you wish someone had told you when you were overlooked. I read every word. Your support means more than you know. And if you're still playing small to keep others comfortable, stop. Be loud. Take up space. Build your life even if no one claps for you yet. Subscribe if my story speaks to yours. Because I'm not done rising, and neither are you. Let them see what they never thought you could become.